That morning, David barged into my office while I was reviewing quarterly reports that spelled exactly what he didn't want to see: triumph. Numbers proving I hadn't just survived his betrayal, I had thrived. "This is Marcus," he bellowed, slamming his hands on my desk. "You're raking in millions while I'm barely keeping my company afloat. We built this together, I deserve my share." I looked at my older brother, noting the designer suit that tried, and failed, to hide his panic. Even his perfect hair couldn't conceal the gray at his temples. David had always been the golden boy, charismatic, confident, seemingly destined for greatness. Now, he looked like a man watching his kingdom collapse. "Funny how you remember partnership now," I said softly, "after you stole the Anderson contract 5 years ago and left me to clean up the mess." His face reddened. "That was business, nothing personal. You were too cautious, too slow. Anderson wanted results. Anderson wanted honesty," I countered. "You gave them lies to win the deal, then abandoned me when it all went south. Remember that, David?" "I do. Every humiliating detail." I took a deep breath. Back then, Anderson Corp could have transformed our small software company into an industry leader. You led client communications while I handled the tech side. I didn't realize you were lying to both sides, promising impossible deadlines to Anderson while hiding their true requirements from our team. When the deal collapsed, you took what remained and left me drowning in lawsuits and debt. "That's history," David waved dismissively. "Look at you now. Pioneer Tech is booming, the same industry I introduced you to, by the way." I clenched my jaw. "The industry you tried to shut me out of after you left? You called all our contacts, claiming I was incompetent and untrustworthy." He shifted uncomfortably. I was frustrated, I continued. "You never listened to my ideas, always insisting on your way." "My way," he interrupted. I stood a little taller. "No, David, the legal way. The way that didn't involve fraud." He ran a hand through his hair, his mask of control slipping. "I know I made mistakes, but we're family. Brothers. Whatever happened." I almost laughed. "Family? You've used that card before, whenever you needed me to cover for your errors or work overtime while you took credit. Why now? Why demand half my company?" He hesitated, and I knew I had him. "Stone Tech is buying up smaller firms," he finally admitted. "They're dominating the market. My company, there's no way we can compete." Ah. David was desperate. Our biggest rival, Stone Tech, was aggressive, leaving nothing behind for competitors. "So you think you're entitled to half of Pioneer Tech?" I asked. "For a partnership you abandoned years ago?" "I have proof," he said, pulling out a folder: emails, meeting notes, records from our early days, evidence that I was supposedly his equal partner. I smiled, then reached for my own files. "Funny you mention proof. I've got a few things to show you too." I set a thick manila envelope on my desk. "Before you speak again, David, take a look at what I uncovered while rebuilding after your betrayal." His eyes narrowed as I spread the contents: emails, contracts, and bank statements that revealed the real story. "5 years ago, you didn't just steal the Anderson contract," I said quietly. "You'd been embezzling from our company for months, funneling money into personal accounts. Charging personal expenses to company credit cards." The color drained from his face. "That's not, you can't prove." "But I can," I cut him off, pointing to specific transactions. "You got careless, David. You thought I was too busy with the technical work to notice the finances, but after you left, I had to trace everything to save the company from collapse." "Those records are old," he muttered, his voice wavering. "They don't matter anymore." "The statute of limitations on fraud hasn't expired," I said evenly. "And that's just the beginning. I found the original correspondence with Anderson, the fake projections, the manipulated timelines, everything you used to deceive them and steal the contract." David sank into the chair opposite me, his earlier arrogance gone. "Marcus, be reasonable. We can work something out, like you worked it out with Anderson. How'd that turn out, anyway? I didn't need to answer. Anderson had sued his company last year for breach of contract. He barely survived the settlement. You're really going to do this? He asked, voice tight. Destroy your own brother? You were the one who tried to destroy me first. I leaned forward. The difference is, I have proof of everything. Proof I've kept hidden for 5 years while I rebuilt what you tried to ruin. His face darkened. If you expose this, it won't just hurt me. Think of Mom and Dad. The family name. Don't pretend this is about family, I snapped. This is about you scrambling to cover up the mess you made. I thought about our parents, who had always sided with David, calling me ungrateful when I refused to reconcile after his betrayal. They had no idea about the fraud, the embezzlement, or the endless lies. Here's how this is going to go, I said, stacking the documents neatly. You leave my office and never return. Stop claiming you helped build Pioneer Tech. Find another way to save your company from Stone Tech, or... A hint of his old bravado crept back. Or these documents go straight to the FBI, the SEC, and every client you've deceived over the last 5 years. Your choice. He rose slowly, adjusting his designer tie. You wouldn't dare. It would ruin the family. I held his gaze. Try me. As he reached the door, he paused. You've changed. The Marcus I knew wouldn't be so ruthless. The Marcus you knew died the day you betrayed me, I replied coldly. Remember that before you try to take what's mine again. Once he left, I sank back in my chair, hands trembling slightly. On my screen, an email notification appeared. Our latest acquisition had been finalized. Pioneer Tech had just purchased a small security-focused software company. The irony wasn't lost on me. While David burned bridges chasing shortcuts, I'd been building solid relationships. While he destroyed trust for quick gain, I focused on sustainable growth and innovation. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. David said you threatened him. Why can't you let the past go? I didn't reply. I opened my laptop to review integration plans for the new company. Let David run to our parents with his lies, the truth would out eventually. The next morning, Sarah burst into my office. Mr. Marcus, you need to see this. She handed me her tablet. The headline froze me. Stone Tech merges with David Chen Software Solutions. My brother had made his choice. Now it was my turn. I stared at the screen, realization hitting like a punch. David had come to me, not for help, but to study Pioneer Tech's weaknesses before joining forces with our biggest competitor. Stone Tech was infamous for hostile takeovers, using insider knowledge to dismantle companies like mine. By merging with David's firm, Stone Tech gained full access to everything he knew about Pioneer Tech, our operations, client networks, and technical systems. I immediately called an emergency board meeting. As I waited for the team to assemble, I reviewed the files documenting David's fraud. They were my safety net, but using them meant revealing not only his crimes, but also that I'd known about them for years without reporting. The merger announcement goes live in an hour, I told the board. Stone Tech isn't just acquiring David's company, they're gearing up for a hostile takeover of Pioneer Tech. How can you be sure? Asked Janet, our CFO. Yesterday, my brother demanded half of our company, I explained. He's been collecting intelligence for Stone Tech, probing for weaknesses. Concern rippled through the room. Everyone knew of David's betrayal years ago, but few had seen the full scope of his schemes. We have options, I continued, but first, you need the whole picture. Over the next hour, I walked them through the entire history, David's embezzlement, fraud, and carefully documented trail of deceit. I explained how I uncovered the truth while rebuilding the company, and why I had kept it secret as leverage. Why didn't you report him earlier? Asked Robert, our head of legal. Exposing him then would have risked Pioneer Tech's survival when we were most fragile, I said. Now, we can use this knowledge to block Stone Tech's takeover safely. The plan was bold but precise. We would submit evidence of David's financial crimes to the SEC, but only the parts pertaining to his current company. This would derail the merger without putting Pioneer Tech under scrutiny. Stone Tech would have discovered this eventually, I explained. We're just speeding up the process. Once they see David's company is toxic, they'll pull out. The board voted unanimously. By evening, our lawyers had filed the necessary documents with the regulators. The results were immediate. Stone Tech stock dropped as news of the fraudulent merger spread, David's company faced an investigation, and the deal was suspended pending review. Later that night, David stormed in again, but desperation replaced his usual arrogance. "You've destroyed me," he shouted. "Stone Tech is pulling out, my investors are fleeing, the SEC is investigating everything." "You destroyed yourself," I replied calmly. "I just made sure the world could see it." "I'll tell them everything, how you knew and stayed silent," he threatened. "Go ahead," I said, standing. "Pioneer Tech is strong enough to survive." "Are you?" He left without another word. The following day, David Chen Software Solutions filed for bankruptcy. Stone Tech quietly abandoned its takeover of Pioneer Tech. A month later, I was in my office reviewing acquisition proposals, not for sale, but for expansion. Pioneer Tech was now in a position to acquire smaller firms, growing steadily and sustainably. My phone buzzed with a message from Dad. "David's lost everything, his house, his reputation, his future. I hope you're happy." I replied simply. "He lost it himself. I only made sure he couldn't drag my company down with him." Looking out at the city skyline, I reflected on the journey from betrayal 5 years ago to today. David had taught me an important truth: success built on lies is fragile, but success built on integrity and innovation endures. My assistant knocked. "Mr. Marcus, the integration team for the new security division is ready." I gathered my files, focused on Pioneer Tech's future. David had chosen his path, I had chosen mine. In the end, truth prevailed, and justice followed naturally.